Good morning, students. In today's session, we will deal with the concept of virtual memory. In the last few sessions, we have already discussed several concepts related to the memory management in the computer system. And in today's session, we will learn a totally new concept, that is the concept of virtual memory. So without wasting our time, I will directly go to the main concepts. So basically, what is the concept of virtual memory? It is a technique that allows the execution of the processes that may not be completely in the memory. That means only a part of the program is resident in the memory and the rest of the part may be resident in the secondary storage or in the disk. We don't require the entire program to be loaded into the memory before the actual starting or execution of the program. So as you can see in the screen, it is written in this manner. Virtual memory is a technique of executing the program instructions that may not fit entirely in the system memory. This is done by calling instructions as and when the application requires it. Virtual memory is implemented by using some sort of secondary storage to augment the main memory. Data is transferred from the secondary to the main storage as and when necessary, and data modifies is written back to the secondary storage according to a predetermined algorithm. Now, if we study the execution of the real programs, we have noticed that programs generally have certain sections of code to handle unusual error conditions. Now, since this error seldom happens, that means those codes may never be executed at all. Or generally, when we are using some sort of arrays uh, or list or some sort of tables, generally we allocate more memory than is the actual requirement. So there may be certain options and features in the program that may also be used rarely. So that means in a particular program, there may be some sections of code which are not at all uh, relevant during the execution of the program, or which may be required at a very few number of times. That means the rest of the code will be enough to run the program. But in certain definite scenarios, specific scenarios, we may be requiring those special sections of code. Keeping that thing in mind, the concept of virtual memory came into existence. So virtual memory allows to start a program without loading the entire program in the memory initially. That is the main concept here. Now, see the particular advantage which can be achievable through this mechanism is like this. A program would no longer be constrained by the amount of physical memory that is available. That means the programmers or the coders need not worry about storage limitations or storage requirements for a particular process. Because each user program could take less physical memory, that means more programs could be run at the same time, thereby increasing the concept of multi-programming to a much greater extent, and this will not increase the response time or turnaround time of the processes also, and finally, less I/O would be needed to load or stack each user program into the memory. So each user program may run somewhat faster. So that means the virtual memory concept is beneficial for the system as well as for the end users also. So if I go into a summary, we can say that virtual memory is the separation of the user logical memory from the physical memory. And this separation allows an extremely large virtual memory to be provided for the programmers when actually only a small physical memory is available to him or her. So that is the concept of virtual memory. Now, to implement virtual memory, we are generally using the concept of swapping. Swapping is a technique of temporarily removing inactive programs from the main memory of a computer system. what is inactive program? And inactive program is one that is neither executing nor performing in IO operation. During the execution of various programs, we may need to swap them as and when the need arises from the main memory. Say, for example, a higher priority process needs to run now, and currently a lower priority process is uh, acquiring some space in the memory. So what we can do, we can swap out, we can remove the lower priority process from the memory, and we can uh, replace it with a higher priority process into the memory that will be running next. So effectively employ virtual memory concepts, we generally use the concept of swapping very much. Now here you can see a diagrammatic representation. That is, you can see a main memory there at the extreme left position and the corresponding secondary memory or the disk in the extreme right position. Now, what happens is that at a particular point of time, program A, which has been taking 4 consecutive memory locations, are being swapped out, and another program is swapped in, which is taking 3 memory locations. So swapping means removal of one process and entry of another process in the computer's main memory. That is being shown here using some sort of diagrammatic representations. Next, we will study a particular technique which is called as demand paging. Now, in the previous sessions, I told you that now we are viewing a particular process or program as a collection of some pages. So basically, we need to bring in the pages of a particular process in the memory from time to time. We don't require to bring all the pages at the same time, as we are now using the concept of virtual memory, but we may require some pages in the memory, and we are bringing those pages, and again we may remove those pages using the concept of swapping. Now, what is demand paging? In virtual memory system, demand paging is a type of swapping in which pages of the programs are not copied from disk to the main memory until they are needed for execution. As I told you, during the execution, during the starting of a particular process, we may not require all the pages of the particular process loaded into the memory. We may start executing the program with loading only a few pages of the particular process. And that is being told here in virtual memory system. Demand paging, what is demand paging? Demand paging is a type of swapping in which pages of the programs are not copied from the disk to main memory until they are needed for execution. Now, in demand paging, virtual address or logical address is accessed by the CPU. The corresponding page number is looked into the page table, and if it shows that currently this page is not in the main memory, then this page must be brought into the main memory. So these informations are being collected or maintained as a part of the page table for the particular process. So this is this is the concept of demand paging here. When we want to execute a particular process, we swap it into the memory. Now, rather than swapping the entire process into the memory, however, we may use the concept of lazy swapper here. What is lazy swapper? A lazy swapper never swaps a page into memory unless that page will be needed. And a swapper manipulates the entire process, whereas a pager is concerned with the individual pages of a particular process. So here we are bringing in a new term, swapper or pager. Basically, the thing is that individual pages of a particular process are being constantly been uh, loaded into the memory as it is required, and again it can be removed from the main memory. So using this concept of swapping and demand paging, the virtual memory technique is being implemented. Uh, So as I told you, when a process is to be swapped in, so when we are starting the execution of a particular process, the particular component which is called as the pager, it guesses which of the pages will be used before the process is swapped out again. Now, instead of swapping in the entire process, the pager brings only those necessary pages into the memory. Thus, it avoids reading into memory pages that will not be used anyway, and thereby decreasing the swap time and amount of physical memory used. So here, with this, so in relation to this concept, a thing may happen, that is page fault may happen. Now, what is page fault? A page fault occurs when an invalid page is addressed. Suppose during the execution of the process, it is been found that a page will be required and that page will not, and that page is currently not in the main memory. Then what will happen? A trap will be generated to the operating system. This phenomenon is known as a page fault. That means the particular required page is not in the physical memory now. So page fault must be followed by swapping in the page demanded just now by the CPU from the disk to the main memory, or a trap should be generated to the operating system if the page being demanded is not within the logical address space of the process. Now, when a particular reference for a particular page is been made here, first of all, it should be checked that whether the demand is legal or not. That means the particular page is within the address space of the currently running process or not. To determine whether the reference to the requested page is within the logical address space or not, an internal table generally is maintained along with the page table. So that may be consulted here. Now, the entire concept of demand paging is shown here using a diagrammatic view. At the extreme left, you can see the logical memory consisting of some pages, page 0, page 1, page 2, like that, having the contents A, B, C, D, etc. And at the extreme right side, we have the physical memory also being shown there. In between, we have the page table. So as I told you earlier, page table contains what? The page numbers and the frame numbers in the memory. So you can relate those things here. Now, as a part of the page table, we have one more component here which is being shown, that is the valid invalid bit. What is that? I'm coming to that part. So with this scheme, with the concept of demand paging, we need some form of hardware support also to distinguish between the those pages that are in the memory and those pages that are on the disk. Now, for that purpose, valid invalid bit scheme is maintained here. When the bit is set to the value, when the bit is set to valid, V stands for valid. When the bit is set to valid, the value indicates that the associated page is both legal and in the memory. And if the bit is set to invalid, this value indicates that the page either is not valid, that is, it is not in the logical address space of the process, or it is valid but is currently on the disk. Now, the valid invalid bit is maintained in the page table. So the page table entry for a page that is brought into the memory is set as usual, but the page table entry for a page that is not currently in the memory is simply marked as invalid. So the valid invalid bit in this case signifies the legality of the requests. So here you can see that page 0 is being stored in frame number 4, and in frame number 4 we have the content A here. In the same way, logical page 2 is being stored in frame number 6, and logical page 5 is being stored at frame number 9. And the rest of the bits, they are invalid bits. So in this way, it is been shown here. Now, next is another diagram. In this diagram, some different steps are being shown. Those are the steps that will be needed when a certain type of page fault happens in the system. As I told you, page fault means page is required, but that page is currently not present in the memory system. Then what to be done? So at the very basic, at the first, as the first step, a trap will be generated to the operating system, and after that, the user processes registers and the process state are being saved. Next, the OS will be deciding that the interrupt that is just generated is due to some sort of page fault. It will check the page reference, whether it is legal or not, and then determine the location of the page on the disk. Next task is to issue a read from the disk request, and that will be copied to a free frame. Now, while the waiting phase starts, the operating system can allocate the CPU to some other waiting processes. Then uh, the particular process which was being interrupted goes into a waiting state. And when the IO is completed next, that means the read request is completed, an interrupt will be generated from the disk. So again, the next process which was been running at that time, at that point of time, will be saved, and its context will be stored in its process control block. And again, the interrupt will be determined, and accordingly the page table entries and other tables will be modified to show that the requested page is now in the main memory. So again, the CPU will be allocated to the first process, and it will resume its operations now, because the requested page is already now in the main memory, and it has no problem in proceeding further. So those steps are being shown here as a part of this diagram. So that is how the page faults generally are handled by the operating system. So if I just repeat once more, so basically the gist is like that. Whenever a page fault occurs, a trap is generated to the operating system. The operating system saves the context of the currently running process, because it has to be interrupted here because the required page is not there. And after saving the context of the currently running process, the operating system will check whether the request is legal or not, and then it will issue a read request from the disk. Now, in the meantime, the operating system can allocate the CPU to some other waiting process. And when the read request is complete, it will generate an interrupt. The disk will generate an interrupt from the disk will generate an interrupt to the operating system, and now the operating system will interrupt the other running process. It will save its context, and then it will again resume the first process, because the first process requested for a particular page, and that page is now in the main memory, so it will proceed as usual without any further interruption here. So this is the way a particular page fault is handled by the operating system. In this context, another concept is there, which is known as pure demand paging. What is that? Pure demand paging is the form of demand paging in which not even a single page is loaded into the memory initially. Thus, the very first instruction causes a page fault in this case. So what happens is that a particular process begins its execution without loading any page in the memory. Then what will happen? A page fault will happen for the very first page. So this concept is known as pure demand paging. That means when the actual demand arises, then only bring in the page. In the previous case, in the case of demand paging, initially we were making some sort of guesses that okay, these pages may be required, and those pages are loaded into the memory before starting of the process. But in case of pure demand paging, what is happening? We are not loading any page at all initially. That means for the very first page, page fault will occur, and then only the particular page will be loaded into the memory. That means again for the second page, another page fault can happen, and that will also be solved in the same manner. That means in this way, some continuous page faults can happen, but after some point of time, it can go to a stable state where all the necessary pages will be resident in the main memory, and the process can continue without any sort of further problems. So this kind of demand paging may significantly decrease the performance of a computer system by generally increasing the effective access time of the memory. As we are not loading any of the pages initially, so for that reason, for that reason, access time or execution time may increase somewhat for this kind of mechanism to follow. But nevertheless, this concept is also there, your demand paging, and it can be employed also. So these are the various concepts which are related to paging in general. And with that, we will conclude our today's session here. Thank you.